How can we encourage more diversity and inclusion in STEAM?
You know, that interest in STEAM really starts early. There are kids, and I was one of these, who had a passion for taking things apart. Engineering and science, basically, but I didn't know that's what it was. And happily, when I was really a little kid, I was encouraged to do that. And I think that one of the things we need to do is do more outreach to these populations when they're young. I mean, find, child care centers, nursery schools, wherever they're hanging out, and get them involved in science-type activities. Let them take things apart, figure out how they work, getting some seeds and growing some plants at home. And, I think that a lot of, kids from well-resourced families do that kind of stuff. And it helps you figure out where your passion lies, where your interest lies. And I think we've got to do a better job of introducing the fun of science really early for all kids.
What is the role of STEAM in addressing global challenges?
It's the whole story. It's the whole story. Most global challenges are based on, come out of insufficiency of resources or confusion about how things work or the inability to get the reagents or the materials you need to do your job or to get to your job. And so I think that for many of these, the biggest challenges facing our world, STEAM has to be a large part of the answer. And the idea that somehow you can make the kinds of changes we need simply by sociological persuasion, I mean, that's just not happening. So I think that another reason for bringing STEAM into it, it's, in doing it very overtly, is if we can identify shared problems, we can together work toward shared answers. And there's nothing more fun than working together with other people with the shared ambition on a common problem.
So what is the biggest misconceptions people have about the field of your work?
So I've had 2 careers. I was a brain scientist for the first part of my career, and I think people think that being a scientist is boring. Oh my gosh, it's so much fun and so interesting. And the other thing that people think is that you're doing something that's somehow programmed. You're not. You're inventing what you do every day, inventing new ways of thinking about your problems. So I think the biggest misconception is somehow that science is boring. That's my field of work. It's not boring at all. It's really exciting. So my second field of work has been university leadership. And people think of that as arduous, kind of a pain in the neck. And I have to tell you, leadership, where you build a shared purpose and a shared ambition and get people to be able to work together, is about the most exciting thing I've ever done. And so, leadership is frankly not about marching at the front of the line. I think leadership is much more about, organizing people and their skills to do things they never imagined they could do on their own.
If you could travel back in time at any point, what would you do?
That's a great question. I mean, there's so many things that I could have, would have, should have done. But as I think a lot about bringing people together around a shared ambition, I think probably one of the most exciting times for science was probably at the Rad Lab at MIT during World War II, where a crazy mashup of people with various perspectives and talents and backgrounds got together to design radar. And radar, by most historians' account, was the war-winning technology. The bomb came along later, and that was the war-ending technology. But the thing that really changed the direction of the war was the development of radar devices. And that happened at MIT in this crazy, old, broken-down building that people could kind of just engineer to their purposes. And they came from many, many different departments, many different schools, and they worked together, again, on this shared ambition. Do I sound like a broken record?
No, it makes a lot of sense.
And the excitement and the challenge of actually doing something that intellectually was challenging, but socially, politically, nothing could have been more important. And then when the war was over, the faculty at MIT were going to go back to the departments from which they came. And they said, we don't want to do that. We like working together like this in this big mashup. And so MIT created a structure for a research lab where you could have your faculty appointment in a department. You could be like me, a biologist among other biologists, but you could actually do your work in a shared enterprise and continue the excitement of working with people who are working on the same problem of yours, where you learn from them because they come at the problem from different perspectives than you have. And so I wish I could have, I mean, I don't wish that I was alive at that time in history, because that was a very, very difficult time for everyone, not just the people who were engaged in fighting the war. But I think the excitement and the passion of that group of scientists and engineers and economists and, I mean, the list, linguists, I mean, there are all kinds of people in this group. I would love to just experience what that felt like.
Amazing.
I am so excited that these students are having the experience of, in a very important and material way, engaging with other students who don't come from the same background, don't come from actually the same sociological background, but don't come from the same intellectual background. And I think once you have that experience of, discovering that you share the same ambition and you can amplify what one another does, it's intoxicating.